Today, I stand face to face with my fate. The day the world finally gets what it's been waiting for, my end. I've spent years running from justice, from truth, from myself. But now, there's nowhere left to hide. No more lies, no more chances. It's over. Today, I'm going to take you inside my last day. Every moment, every thought running through my mind as the hours passed. Watch closely because these are details no one has ever shared before, so make sure you watch the video all the way to the end. It all started at 7 a.m., January 23rd, 1989. A guard quietly opened my cell door and woke me. I knew I had only 24 hours left. The sun was just starting to rise over Florida State Prison. I had barely slept. Most of the night, I just paced back and forth, waiting for the morning to come. I got up slowly and went through the usual motions, washed my face, brushed my teeth with that little prison toothbrush. Breakfast came on a tray: scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. I picked at the food, but I didn't really eat. My stomach was tight, and nothing tasted right. The light came into my cell, cold and gray. I took a sip of the coffee, warm, bitter, and hard to swallow. Something about this morning felt different. Outside, the world was already gathering. Reporters were arriving at the gates. Some had camped there all night. Crowds filled the area, some shouting for justice, others protesting the death penalty, but all of them came for one reason: to see what would happen next. I wished time would just stop, but it didn't. An hour slipped away, and now it was 8 a.m. I sat there. My body was still, but my thoughts were loud. I picked up the Bible and read a few lines. Not sure why. Maybe I was hoping something would make sense, something would save me from what was coming. Reverend Fred Lawrence stopped by. He'd been visiting me for weeks. We talked a little. He said I seemed more thoughtful than usual. He was right. I was thinking a lot. Not about peace. I didn't have that. I was thinking about everything I had done and what came next. Outside the cell, my lawyers were moving fast. Polly Nelson and Jim Coleman were working on last-minute appeals. They argued I wasn't mentally fit to be executed, that maybe somehow I could get more time. But this time, the law didn't bend for me. Every appeal was denied, one by one. I used to love the courtroom, standing tall, talking like I knew it all. I was my own lawyer once. But now, I was powerless, just another man waiting to die. The guards watched me closely. Cold faces, no sympathy, and inside, I was falling apart. The truth was heavy. I had told Liz, the woman who once loved me, who I really was. But there was more I never said, things even darker. I thought about the women I killed. How many were there? Maybe even more than 100. Only I knew where they were. Only I knew what I did. And why? Even I couldn't explain it. An hour had passed. It was now 9 a.m. Pastor Fred Lawrence returned to my cell, Bible in hand. He stayed longer this time, guiding me through the weight of what was coming. He asked about my childhood and my time in church. I wasn't truly religious. I'd listed Methodist on my papers only because I attended a few services as a kid. I even served as vice president of the Methodist Youth Fellowship once, but I didn't really believe in God. My mind drifted to the secrets I carried: my mother pretending to be my sister, my violent grandfather, my depressed grandmother. I always knew I was different. I remembered sneaking into my Aunt Julia's room while she slept, slipping knives beneath her blanket. When she woke screaming, I only smiled. Around this time, a hard phone call came from my mother. During our talk, we discussed forgiveness, remorse, and what might come after death. I kept my calm on the outside, but inside, peace was far away. It was now 10 a.m., and time was slipping faster. The Supreme Court had made its final decision. No more appeals, no delays. My execution was officially confirmed. My attorney came to tell me. "There will be no stay," he said. For a moment, I felt something in my chest, tight, sharp, but I kept my face steady. I couldn't let them see anything else. Outside my cell, security got tighter. The prison was preparing. So was the warden, James Crosby. Everyone was following the schedule. At the same time, Bob Keppel, the man who had studied me for years, looked over his notes. We had spoken recently, another one of our intense conversations. I kept talking, still playing the game, still trying to buy time. But Keppel wasn't fooled. Out of all the killers he'd studied, he said I was the most dangerous. Not just because of what I did, but because of how I could lie, twist, and control. He called it a debriefing. I knew it was really a test, my last move on the board. But now, the game was ending. By 11 a.m., my civil attorney, Diane Weiner, was doing everything she could on the outside. She told the press I felt morally compelled to do the right thing. Maybe she still believed the Supreme Court might grant another delay, but I wasn't so sure anymore. I'd already had 3. That morning, Polly Nelson came to see me. She had been fighting for me for a long time, but now she saw what I'd come to accept. The end was near. I couldn't hold it in. I cried in front of her. Later that hour, I sat with Detective Keppel and Agent Hagmeyer again. I told them more about the women, about the places. Washington, Utah, Colorado, Idaho. The words came out cold, like I wasn't even talking about people. The only time I felt anything was when I spoke about myself. At 12 p.m., I had just 19 hours to live. Lunch came, a sandwich, a small bag of chips and some juice. I barely touched it. I wasn't hungry. I just sat there, mostly in silence. Outside, more people had gathered by the prison gates. Some were holding signs. One read, "Roast in peace, Ted Bundy." Another said, "The devil dies at dawn." They were cheering, laughing like it was some kind of show. But not everyone came to celebrate. I heard about one woman standing quietly among the crowd, a student. When a reporter asked her why she was there, she said, "I believe in the sanctity of human life, even Ted Bundy's life." People like her were rare. I thought about how things used to be back when the media called me the all-American boy. In those early trials before the Florida murders, women used to come just to watch me. Some even styled their hair like the girls I had killed. Time kept moving, and the noise outside only grew louder. At 1 p.m., I was granted one last visit from my mother, Louise Bundy. For years, she held on to hope that I was innocent, despite all the evidence. Our meeting was short, heavy with feelings we didn't say out loud. She had always been there for me, the one constant in a life full of darkness. But now, the reality was clear. We both knew this was the last time we'd see each other. As she walked away, tears ran down her face. The weight of my crimes and what was coming broke her heart. Alone in my cell, shadows stretched on the walls. Memories came flooding back. I used to be a Boy Scout, a psychology student with a future ahead. I even worked in politics and helped people in crisis, talking women out of hurting themselves. I watched my best friend Anne leave at night, warning her to stay safe. But I was the danger she feared. Anne stopped answering my letters long ago. She was tired of my games and poetry. She would never forgive me. Now I tried to rest. A TV interview was coming up, one of the last chances to tell my side. Before we step into that moment, take a second to like and subscribe. It helps us a lot and lets us keep sharing stories like this. Now, let's uncover what happened at 3 o'clock.
For the record, you are guilty of killing many women and girls.
Yes. Yes, that's true.
As the clock struck 3, I faced my final interview, sitting across from Dr. James Dobson, a Christian psychologist. 6 guards stood close by as he asked, "For the record, you are guilty." "Yes," I said. I spoke about my childhood, a solid Christian home with parents who didn't smoke or gamble, but I blamed things like pornography and alcohol for warping my mind, for the dark fantasies that grew inside me. I said I took full responsibility, but I also tried to explain how those addictions fueled my actions. I described how I would return to the bodies, sometimes beheading victims to keep trophies, always drunk. I don't want to die, I admitted, then criticized the violence Americans see on TV. As the interview ended, I was led back to my cell. I sat down, my head leaning against the cold bars. The weight of everything I'd said, the confessions, the memories pressed heavily on me. Phones had been ringing all day and night. The Supreme Court might still stop what was coming. Surely, what I'd told Keppel would buy me more time. But deep down, I knew the truth was slipping away. Outside, detectives were racing against the clock, digging through the snowy burial sites I'd named. They were searching for the small clues, like that Tiger 10-speed bike with serial number 290, that might finally close the case for good. At the same time, Detective Keppel was replaying our interview over and over in his mind. I had faced him through the glass, Diane Weiner beside me, a tape recorder capturing every word. Under the sickly lime green light, I looked paler than usual, but I still wore that unsettling smile he knew so well. Keppel didn't trust me, not for a second, and maybe he shouldn't have. I told him about Donna Manson, picked up from Evergreen State College, and how I'd buried her on Taylor Mountain near the others. I spoke of Georgiana Hawkins, the case that haunted Keppel the most. I told him how I'd faked a broken leg on crutches to trick her, how I'd asked her to help carry my briefcase, then struck her with a tire iron when she turned away. Keppel listened as I described her struggle, my voice calm, detached, almost cold. I told him how she came alive again on the way to her fate and how I had to hit her again, then strangle her. I spoke of the girls from Lake Sammamish, not just 2 bodies but 3, all lured by a smile, my shiny white tennis shoes, and relaxed summer shorts. Then something unexpected happened. My eyes filled with tears. Were they real? Was it an act? Keppel watched closely as the tears slid down my face and my voice cracked. "There are more," I whispered. Keppel's mind was already racing. He picked up the phone and called his superior, voice tense. "There are more," he said. "He's still holding back. He's trying to save his own life." Keppel was sure. There were at least 100 bodies. Back in my cell, the heavy silence pressed down on me, broken only by distant sounds. I kept searching for a way to escape it all. My mind would not stop. Faces I wanted to forget kept coming back. The night felt very long. I looked at the bars and waited. I knew the end was near. I stayed there thinking and waiting until it was 12 a.m. when midnight came. At 12 a.m., the air around Florida State University was thick with smoke from a cookout. Students had gathered, laughing and cheering under a banner that read, "Watch Ted fry, see Ted die." The Chief I house, where I had murdered 2 young women and left 2 more badly injured, was just a few steps away. For some, the celebration felt like an insult to the suffering of those girls. While I sat alone in my cell, I tried to rest. They offered me something to help me sleep, but I didn't take it. I lay on the bed, overthinking everything. I picked up the phone to call my mother. "Mom," I said, "I love you. I'm sorry. This is my fault. You didn't do anything wrong." She told me, "You'll always be my precious son." I also tried reaching out to Carol several times, but she never answered. That silence was heavier than anything else that night. I called my mother again. I just needed to hear her voice. Not long after, Polly Nelson came in, my lawyer. She had done everything she could to save me. She sat close. I laid my head in her hands, and for a moment, she just held it. I think she felt sorry for me, maybe even more than before. Before she left, she hugged me through the glass. Then she turned away and walked out crying. A guard came to the door. It was time for my last meal: steak, eggs, toast, juice. I didn't eat any of it. I just sat there, quiet, waiting. The hours passed slowly until morning came, and it was 6 a.m., which meant only 1 hour left. At 6 a.m., they came to wake me, but I was already awake, just lying there with my eyes closed. I opened my eyes, and the cell was still dark. One of the guards told me it was time. They gave me clean clothes, khaki pants and a light blue shirt, and told me I could take a shower. I moved slowly. Every step felt heavier than the last. I kept thinking, this is it. This is how it ends. The guards didn't say much. They just watched, quiet and serious. No one needed to explain anything. We all knew what came next. Father Lawrence came with his communion kit. He said a prayer, offered me the wafer and the wine. I took them. Then we bowed our heads in silence. He began to explain what would happen next. The last walk, the hood, the straps, the electric current. I tried to stay calm, but I could feel something building inside me. You'll hear a loud sound, he said. It's just the circuits. You won't feel pain. That's when the tears came. I tried to hold them back, but I couldn't. My whole body felt like it was sinking. Father Lawrence reached through the bars and took my hand. I've never had my hands held that tight, he'd later say. He promised he'd be watching when they threw the switch, and that in his mind, he'd still be holding my hand. By 6:30, it was time to walk. I was led through the halls by a line of guards. I kept my head forward, but everything felt like it was spinning. My heart was pounding, but I kept walking. The execution chamber was just ahead. I looked out through the glass. People were watching. Some were reporters. Some were family of the girls. They were here to see me die. Outside, I knew people were still partying, cheering, holding signs. I had only minutes left. I thought about the machine waiting for me, the wires, the headpiece, the sound of the switch being pulled. There was nowhere left to run. No more stories, no more lies, just silence and the end. At 7 a.m., the room grew silent as they strapped me into the electric chair, Old Sparky. They tied my wrists, ankles, and chest tightly. My head was shaved so they could place the electrode cap. They also put a wet sponge on my head and attached another electrode to my leg. There were 42 people watching: police, journalists, prison officials, even some family members of my victims. My mother wasn't there. We had agreed she shouldn't have to see this. When they asked if I had any last words, I looked at my lawyer, Jim, and Pastor Fred. I said, "Jim and Fred, please give my love to my family and friends." Then the executioner flipped the switch. 2,000 volts ran through me. I felt my body tense and twist in pain, but it didn't last long. At 7:16 a.m., it was the end. Later, they cremated my body. I had asked that my ashes be scattered in the Cascade Mountains, near where some of my first victims were. Outside, the news spread fast. Some people cheered. For many, it was justice, but for others, the nightmare wasn't over. Now you might think hearing my side of the story is painful or tough to accept, but if you want the full truth, you need to hear what my survivors went through. Their stories matter just as much, maybe even more. Before you go, I want to remind you, not everyone deserves your trust or sympathy. Some people will use your kindness to deceive and hurt you. That's why it's important to teach your loved ones, your children, your friends, how to spot lies and protect themselves. Because deception is only getting smarter with time. Stay aware, stay strong. Thank you for watching.